Light, where are you? Good evening and welcome to Going for Two. This is the only YouTube podcast in human recorded history to feature a male and female host drinking our way through the important topics of the day, as long as they touch the football world, but not in that way. Tonight we'll talk about the only two subjects on my Twitter timeline worth talking about, the Scotty Fishbowl and Game of Thrones. I am Zach Law. This is No Moro Beer Sharona. It's July 13th, 2017, and we are recording on a special night at a special time, so yawn. I mentioned this might be the first beer-free episode. Well, it is on the West Coast, but I still have my...
well, you're drinking beer. I'm drinking...
In honor of Game of Thrones, Dragon's Milk.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That has to torture me. It wouldn't be... it wouldn't be real if Zach didn't torture me, but no, I am... I have quit. So, yeah.
And we
drink water.
Speaking of torture, we haven't gotten over Sharona's draft picks in Scotty Fishbowl, but we'll get there.
I eagerly await you hating on my draft because I know it's coming.
Really, with the Scotty Fishbowl, the torture is the 2 months between now and the regular season, hoping none of your players tear an ACL, walking down the stairs, because there's nothing you can do about that. So tonight's guest is Greg Smith, who is a writer, contributor for TwoQBs.com, Draft Consult Inc., The Fake Baseball, I Knew Baseball Was Fake, and a Beard Canvas. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Great. You do have a great beard.
I appreciate you saying that. It just happens. I can't help it.
Zach is jealous because I can grow a better beard than he can.
I actually have some episodes where I grew a beard. I'd say the maintenance is the problem. The fact that it grows and weird. It's basically like weeds in your yard. That's what's happening. So since you're the native guy for TwoQBs, and you write for TwoQBs.com, why do people in fantasy? Why should they do TwoQBs?
So, there are a lot of reasons, and I think the first one for me is that it's fun. It adds more value to players that you watch every day on Sundays or every week during the regular season. The quarterback's the most important position in football, and when you only draft one per team in a standard, a 10 or 12 team league, there are just a lot of really, good players and at least usable fantasy players who have nothing to do with the game, and that seems wrong to me. But it's one of those things where I think if you try it, you'll like it because you get to play with more of these guys, and it kind of puts a little bit more strategy into the game itself, right? We know that you don't really have to take a quarterback early in a one quarterback format. In a 2QB league, you can make that pick. You can take Aaron Rodgers in the first round and not feel bad about it. You can take Drew Brees in the first round and not feel bad about it. So there's something to be said about that. I think that it just increases the amount of strategy that goes into your draft prep. It makes waivers in season a little more challenging when it comes to the quarterback position. And I think that's the reason a lot of people don't like 2QB leagues. But, if it wasn't a challenging game, why do you want to play it in the first place? If it's too easy, then we're probably doing it wrong. And I think that TwoQBs makes it a little harder. And I do think it just makes it more enjoyable because it gives you more investment into the NFL's most important position.
Can you do TwoQBs when you have a 12-team league, or is that where you have to do kind of the super flex?
Yeah, generally 12-team is where you would kind of put the cutoff for Superflex. I've played in a 12-team 2QB league before, and you will get to some weeks where someone has, one of those feel-bad moments where they just don't have a second quarterback to start because, enough players are injured and enough players are on bye that it's just not possible without a trade. And oftentimes you go to look for a trade, and nobody will even have an extra quarterback that they're willing to give up. So, 12-team is where you want to introduce that super flex position where, in addition to a quarterback, you could also start any other, offensive spot. And it's a good solution, honestly, because that way most weeks you are playing with two quarterbacks, but it prevents those feel-bad situations of not having enough quarterbacks to go around.
Yeah, I definitely got to put my beer up to anybody who created any kind of flex league because it just opens up the possibilities. Before I ask that first question, it sounded like you were going to talk some more about the beard. So I want to give you an opportunity to if you had started a thought there and didn't finish it, give me the opportunity to do that.
Your hosting skills are strong, Zach. You definitely read my actions there. I once went for a wedding. I was a part of a wedding party, and as kind of a part of that whole event, all the men in the wedding party, all the the men of honor, I don't know what the right word, groomsmen, there's the word. All of us went to go get a straight razor shaves at a barbershop, and I sat down in the chair. The guy starts lathering it up and all that good stuff, and he starts to take care of my neck, and it is terrible. It is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life, and I can't tell if he was being honest or not, but the barber kind of grabs my shoulder and says, "Hey, look, you have a top 1% beard strength of hair," and it's like anyone else I can shave this no problem, but it is too much. It is too difficult, and that's why it hurts so much. And I was like, you're probably just not very good at your job. But anyway, that was my story.
So strong. Yeah, that occasionally, the neck part, shaving the face. I used to do it every day, and I'm like, I need a day or two to let it grow. It seems to actually shave better if I do that. But we'll down the road as the show goes on, we'll talk maybe some of our favorite beards on Game of Thrones. That'll be a good discussion. So just everybody on the show, start thinking about what you're going to say, because it's going to happen.
I have some thoughts.
Now, in the Going for Two redraft league we did, I waited on quarterback forever. And of course, I drafted Ryan Fitzpatrick when Matt Ryan was still available. So who are some of those positive regression quarterbacks for 2017? Just asking in hopes that I've actually drafted one of them in the Scotty Fishbowl.
So there are a couple that are relatively obvious for me, and this is because we've seen them perform really well before. And the two that come to mind in that regard are Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. Russell Wilson is coming off the worst season he's ever had since he was a rookie, and we know he's better than that. We know he was limited by injury to some extent. His receivers should be healthier this year. Tyler Lockett should be back to full strength, fingers crossed, and Paul Richardson is hopefully going to take another step forward based upon what we saw down the stretch in the playoffs last year. I think he's a really good candidate for a bounce back, but everybody knows that, so you're not really getting as much value there, because you still have to take him pretty early. As far as lower tier guys, I'm a believer in let me pull up my rankings here, because I'm blanking on specific names, but a guy I've been drafting a lot is Matthew Stafford, and he had a relatively good year last year. It's not to say that he's going super cheap, but it's one of those things where there are a lot of guys in the middle of that quarterback class, the middle class or the middle tier of QBs. They're all relatively close in value. So generally what I'd say is, rather than target specific guys, you probably want to look at just whoever's going latest in those tiers. You don't really want to force the issue on any specific players. But in terms of positive regression, let's see. Who looks good here? Andy Dalton is definitely one of those guys who could bounce back in a big way. And he's a guy who a lot of people are touting this year for good reason.
I drafted him, as I recall.
Good. I think
I drafted him.
You guys
win the same division.
I think that Ryan Tannehill is another interesting case. He didn't look very good for the most part, and his general profile, his usage was not very high, but his efficiency did improve in a lot of regards last year. So he's a guy who I think, if you're looking for a cheaper guy in two quarterback formats, you could target him as your QB2 and be satisfied with his performance at the year's end. He's a guy I took in my SFB division. I think Joe Flacco's another guy who you could look to for regression, if only because he has more weapons this year. Things should be a little bit better for him too. Those are probably the key guys for me. Wilson and Cam at the top of drafts, and then Dalton, Tannehill, and Flacco later.
Yeah, Cam was a guy I kind of wish in my dynasty league I had traded away after his MVP year, because you kind of knew he had some real stinkers. I mean, he always has a few every year, but the running kind of evens it out. And once he got kind of hurt, he didn't run very much, which made it tough. So because you're part of the two quarterbacks phenomenon. Did you have to pour one out at the end of the Jay Cutler and Tony Romo careers?
Definitely for Romo. He was a guy who I loved using in fantasy. Cutler too. I mean, I've drafted Cutler a number of times, but the way his career kind of wound down, there wasn't a whole lot to be excited about with him moving forward, I don't think. And so I wasn't so sad to see him go, but Romo feels like he could have had a couple more years left, especially when you see guys like Carson Palmer, Eli Manning playing as late into their careers as they have. It's sad to see him go when they do go, but you know what? That just makes more room for the other guys, the up-and-comers at the position. So that's football, right? These guys are in and out.
Yeah, I was wondering where Tony Romo was going, like in MFL 10s early in the year, because the assumption was that Denver or Houston would sign him, and he'd probably be a low-end quarterback one at worst. And he's like, oh, I get money whipped to be – I mean, that's another thing being a quarterback. Like, you can be the worst quarterback ever. If you start for a college team, you have like a radio gig for the rest of your life if you want it. Or you can host the ESPYs like Peyton Manning, right, Sharona?
Are the ESPYs still a thing?
Well, I just saw a bunch of tweets about it. I didn't hear any of it. Nothing can top his Saturday Night Live appearance. That's good stuff. Whatever you think about him.
And he's a big subject of Bruce Arians' new book, from what I gather.
Oh, well, if you coach Peyton, you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to talk the crap out of him. So, Greg, why are you a fan of fantasy-related agony or Schadenfreude? I can't pronounce that. That was in
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I mean, the fear of watching other people, or the joy you take in watching other people fail, that's that's what our home leagues are for, right? I don't know how you apply that necessarily on a fantasy level. Can you coach me up on this a little bit?
Oh gosh, I think it's just the Lisa London school of the Cabo curse of the every player she drafts is clearly going to be cursed. Although if you're talking smack with other owners, you should probably think that their players are cursed, right, as opposed to yours. But there's this,
I'm definitely guilty of trying to reverse jinx my teams at times, talking poorly about my own players in the hopes that they bounce back. But that's not quite the same phenomenon you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about like players you draft high and they suck, and the next year you're like, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole, but then they're going to be comebacks. Like, there's so many articles about bounce back players, and I think those guys are in my dynasty roster, you bastard. There's nothing I can do. Like last year it was DeMarco Murray, and Cam Newton was the opposite. But yeah, I didn't make any bucks off that. So since you're a West Coast guy, do you own a UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs shirt?
I do not. It'd be a little bit too on the nose for me, being that I'm from here. I actually went to UC Davis, which is up near Sacramento. Go Aggies. But so it'd be a little rude to my alma mater to own one of those as well. So no Banana Slug t-shirt for me. I just I'll just enjoy them in Pulp Fiction, and that's about it.
Yeah, I figured once that appeared in Pulp Fiction, that was a very popular one. So if you work for Sal and work for TwoQBs.com, do you have to have like Patrick Swayze quotes ready, and do you have to show off like screen caps for every time you draft Alex Smith?
So to be clear, I work with Sal. Sal and I co-founded the site along with Josh Lake. The three of us started the site together. And yes, I do have a vast knowledge of Patrick Swayze, which is actually a little bit independent of Sal. We kind of came to appreciate those movies, I think, because we kind of grew up in the same era as my guest. We have just an indescribable love of Point Break and Roadhouse.
It is a classic.
So I was going to ask
both of those movies.
I was going to ask which one you thought was his best movie, but I'm guessing that it's Point Break.
That seems like your favorite kid almost.
I'm a Point Break guy, and I think Sal's a Roadhouse guy. So that's where we can agree to disagree. But I mean, they're both great. I mean, Wade Garrett versus Bodie. Yeah, it's tough to choose, man. I don't know.
I'm a Roadhouse kind of gal.
Mm-hmm. Roadhouse has the music element, which I really enjoy, and that's something that you don't really get from Point Break. But Point Break has the surfing stuff, and I live in a surf town, so there's some appeal to that as well.
And then, and you can't go wrong with Dirty Dancing. I'm sorry, you just can't.
No one puts baby in that.
Nobody.
The fact that actually I don't think Roadhouse has been remade, but Point Break was remade, and then Dirty Dancing was like was it a TV movie that people made fun of?
They were remaking.
I don't even know what
Roadhouse with Ronda Rousey.
Because some boy,
I don't know what happened with him.
yeah. What happened?
I don't
with
acknowledge the Point Break remake. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
So do you think that Sal is just better at the hashtag brand just because he's always associated with it? I guess that's because it's part of his Twitter handle.
It is.
And you want to be more of a broad, I'm known for more than one thing, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been doing the dedicated 2QB thing longer than I have. Like, when I started out, I was just kind of a general fantasy football writer. I was writing at the Fake Football, and if anything, most of my analysis there was geared towards 1QB leagues because that's what everybody was doing. But my home leagues and the leagues that I always enjoyed the most were 2QB, and so Sal and I kind of bonded over that on Twitter and whatnot. And so it just so happened that we were both kind of at that point where we were talking about, what would happen if we started a site that was only for 2 quarterback leagues? And here we are, a year and a half later, and it's been great. I mean, the response has been awesome. I think that, like you guys talked about, it's kind of a phenomenon of a format where, the Scott Fishbowl has been a big help, and just the industry in general has really adopted 2 quarterback, and that's been great. But yeah, Sal's the king of the brand, no doubt. And
it's a niche world at this point, and fantasy to say we need to have fantasy football in one format. It's like, no, that's what the fun is. Like all these crazy Scott Fish leagues, and it's not just a Scott Fishbowl. He's a bunch of other ones. It really does allow people to try a bunch of different, draft strategies and see if they work or not. So what's it like? Did you start the 2 Quarterback Experience podcast? And I just was listening to your interview with Lord Reeves. I was just thinking, what would it be like him on a date? Because he just throws out those stats like the end of a commercial where they're doing the legalese. He just goes, man, and it's impressive.
Micro Machines, man.
I know.
Scatman Crothers, yeah, he's incredible. I don't think he has to worry about the dating scene anymore. I'm pretty sure he's married with kids, but
yeah, good for him.
He's a machine, not only in the way he talks, but just the way he does content. Like his worksheet week to week in the fantasy season is one of those just kind of crucial pillars of fantasy analysis that, if you're not reading it, just stop what you're doing and go set up a Google alert for Rich Rebar's worksheet right now, because week 1, you're going to want to check it out.
The fantasy community has a lot of great resources, and 2QBs is definitely one of them, but we're real fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's great about fantasy in general is that everybody can find, the one little avenue that they like about the game. Like if you want to play IDP, you can play IDP. If you want to play best ball, you can play best ball. There are different league formats, there are different league setups, there are different scoring rules, and you can totally make it what you want. I mean, it's kind of like Monopoly, right? Where no matter who you play with, the rules are going to be a little different, what you can get away with and how much money you get if you land on free parking. But if you go read the rules for Monopoly, it says if you land on free parking, nothing happens. It's just a free space. It's a safe space on the board. But, that's boring, right? That's why, we start to tweak these rules. We start to, try to play with it and see if we can find a format that suits us. And I mean, it's great. I don't think there's any reason to disparage anything. Like if people don't like 2 quarterback leagues, fine. There's plenty of other leagues you can play in. But for me, that's what I've come to enjoy the most, and that's why I try to be a proponent for it, because I do think that most people, when they try it, will like it.
Well, it's time for us to transition to talking about the Scott Fishbowl, because it's almost like the official start of the fantasy season. I know people do like MFL 10. Sorry, Sharona, your interstate doesn't allow that.
I'm doing one. Apparently, I can do one if
okay.
It's like for charity or whatever. I just can't do one where you pay the $10-20 whatever, and you possibly get the kitty at the end.
Well, like I said, like MFL 10 start like the week after the Super Bowl for the following year, but it doesn't have the same cachet. Scott Fishbowl is like the industry insider, and yeah, apparently there are 720 insiders. That's how many people are in the league this year. The leagues. The draft started on Monday, and as usual, he made crazy rule changes. So for this year, it's point per first down, not point per catch. Tight ends get like a 1.5 bonus for that, and touchdowns are 5 instead of 6 unless you're a quarterback. Throwing, that's 6. So obviously, quarterbacks are very important. They've already been very important. The number one pick in the league we're in, Sharona and I together, were both was a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. So, Greg, what division are you in? How's it been going for you? Like, what pick are you at right now, or what round? Since things may have changed as we start talking.
Yeah, so I am actually. It looks like I'm on the clock.
We can talk about that. Drafting live.
Yeah, let's. Oh yeah, I mean, let's dig into it. So I'm in the Hercules division, which is in the heroes subsection, which I got to be honest, I kind of wish it was just like Division 1, Division 2. This has definitely got more personality, but it's harder for me to keep track of everything. Anyway, we're in round 13, and based on the scoring settings and the roster construction, my read on the format is that you want to go running back heavy if possible. You want to chase volume at the running back position because those are the players who get the biggest bonus from the point per first down. Wide receivers, despite the fact that they're catching passes like further down the line of scrimmage, they don't tend to rack up quite as many first downs as running backs because they're not only getting, the first downs when they bust big runs, they're also picking up those short yardage ones. And essentially every first down is worth 10 yards rushing or receiving. So that, combined with the fact that there's a supply-demand issue with quarterback in a 12-team superflex, makes those two positions the most important to me. And so I leaned on that a little bit in the early rounds. Now, with all that said, because of the tight end premium on first downs, tight ends also have a lot of value. I felt like I wanted to have at least one guy who I felt like could finish as the top 5 tight end. And so I started off my draft with 3 straight running backs. Took Devonta Freeman, DeMarco Murray, Lamar Miller. Then I took Tyler Eifert in the 4th round. Again, he was kind of that last guy in the tier of what I believe to be elite tight ends. I think that, Martellus Bennett, Delaney Walker, Kyle Rudolph, those guys have a shot to ascend a little bit, but Eifert has like tight end 1 upside, in my opinion. He's like baby Gronk if he can stay healthy, knock on wood. That's a big if. And then after that, it was just 3 straight quarterbacks. Or excuse me, I took one more running back. I took Mike Gillisley in the 5th round. So heavy on running back in the first 5 rounds, and then 3 straight quarterbacks. I'm a big proponent of waiting at QB, even in super flex leagues. And the reason for that is because generally quarterback scoring is pretty predictable, and every QB has like a relatively high week-to-week ceiling. Like even Sam Bradford can throw for 3 touchdowns in a game pretty easily, just because as the quarterback, he's going to touch the ball a lot of times in a given game. So you can construct these narratives in your head where a quarterback, may not be the most talented guy, but, if he is fortunate enough with good field position or a couple big plays, he could, easily have a big week any given week. And we saw, Trevor Siemian have that huge explosion last season, remember, right? So running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, that was kind of my hierarchy. And that, leaves wide receivers as, the short end of the stick. And I didn't even take my first one until round 9 with Emmanuel Sanders. And then after that, I was right back to another running back. I took Adrian Peterson. Took 2 more wide receivers since then. I'm rambling here, so feel free to interrupt.
What round are you guys in?
We're in round 13. So I have a full starting lineup now with my 3 wide receivers covered. All my flexes technically would be running backs if we, go by the order I drafted players in. And I have 1 bench quarterback because I want to be able to fill in for bye weeks. And ultimately, I want to be able to play the matchups with my QBs because I waited so long. I took Carson Palmer, Ryan Tannehill, and Sam Bradford. None of those guys are super exciting. I think all of them have that week-to-week upside, though. And so if I can look at the matchups and try to determine which 2 to play in any given week where they're all 3 available, I think that I can leverage that a little bit and gain an advantage that way without having to pay a high premium for, the Lucks, the Rodgers, the Breezes, the Bradys.
See, I took luck. We had like a totally different strategy.
But there's nothing wrong with that, and that makes a lot of sense too, because you're locking in that really like elite production at the quarterback position, and you're never going to take him out of your lineup as long as he's healthy.
As long as he's healthy.
Yeah,
my
Zach,
shoulder.
see,
Oh, my
see,
shoulder.
Zach thinks Zach,
I
Zach hates
feel
on my
bad
draft.
enough about the players I pick. So when someone else picks someone, I'm like, oh, look, I can poke at that.
Real quick, I got to tell you guys a story though, because
By the way,
it's
your
very.
pick's up also, Sharona.
Oh, is it okay?
That's okay. You got time. Tell your
Yeah.
story first.
So, Zach and I are both in the Tinkerbell division, and Tinkerbell was one of the ones that I had selected. So I'm at my sister's house a few weeks ago. This is, right when things were kind of starting to crank and you're getting excited and everything. And she just remodeled her house. I just moved. She's giving me furniture. We're switching out furniture and giving each other stuff and everything. And she gave me, I don't know if you can see it or not. This is what she gave me. So it's a sign. I just feel like I'm going to take it all, because I have a Tinkerbell that my sister gave me. It's a good luck charm.
Did she know you were in the Tinkerbell division when she gave it to you?
No, she had no.
Wow.
She's not a sports person. She no idea. And I was like, I freaked out, and then she got excited, and it was like a girl party, So it was kind of neat. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I was just looking at our division, the last 5 picks. So Tom Savage went 1402. Talk about quarterback derangement syndrome.
Well, did you see who I'm waiting for you to hate? Did you see who I took?
As excited as I am about Adam Shaheen, to see a guy who's Division 6 as a rookie being picked in the 14th round, that's one thing that I had to bring up, because I've done some mock drafts, because of course, if you're a true, totally, degenerate like I am, you're going to do mock drafts for Scott Fishbowl. Well, the MFL defaults include a lot of dynasty leagues, so rookies get pushed up. So you got to really pay attention to who's number 1 on your pre-draft list, because it could be some guy who he might do something in 3 years, but this year, I don't know. I'm leaning. Let's see. So let me see. I'll hit the refresh button and I'm excited. Nope, still says you're the next pick. Dang it all.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
You can tell me you're gonna make it, dramatic and all.
So speaking of the ADP problem you're talking about, that is one issue with drafting on MFL like this, and we need to do, your viewers a service here and recommend Fantasy ADHD's ADP app, fantasyadhd.com/SFB. He's calculating the actual ADP from all these drafts as they're happening, and that's been a really good tool, especially for me, because my draft is a little slower. Some of the drafts are already well ahead of us. And
one of the divisions in our thing, they're on round 21. They're almost done. They're actually almost to the final round. And there's something to be said for drafting fast, but at the same time, it's once you're done, you're just Neo dodging bullets. You're hoping your guys don't.
Last year, I was in the slowest draft ever.
I remember that. Yeah, you were doing. We slowed down today.
I once went 10 whole days without making a pick. 10 whole days. We were one of the last ones to finish. It was excruciating.
That's unbelievable. That's way too long.
Yeah. So I took Andrew Luck. I have 3 quarterbacks. I know you're not going to be a fan of my draft, Greg. That's cool. I took, don't tell me, I took Andrew Luck, and then as my second guy.
I'm looking at your roster right now, but go ahead.
I don't remember. Go ahead and tell me.
You took Mitchell Trubisky at the
That's my last one. I do have
Wentz.
Carson Wentz. That's right.
Downside of the 80.
I like that pick.
You're like me. You drafted a lot lot of rookies. You got, Kamara, of course. You got to have a Tennessee guy. Dalvin.
I took Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed is my first tight end that I took, and then I took another. What was the other tight end that I took?
Austin Hooper from
Austin Hooper. I like that pick.
I like the Hooper pick. The Hooper pick's a nice one.
I like that pick a lot. The running back value when I was picking, I didn't really want to select it. Let me go ahead and make my next pick, because I already know who I'm gonna select. Let me see if I can.
I was tempted to take Derrick Henry, but
I did take Derrick Henry, didn't I?
There was even a big ripple in the community about Derrick Henry and his value. I don't know if it's a weekly thing or a best ball thing. I feel like he's going to have some great weeks. It's well, if DeMarco Murray gets hurt, because I have him in a dynasty league, it's yeah, but on a week-to-week basis, it's going to be really tough to start him. But
there is
the Titans all of a sudden seem almost like they might be a little overvalued. But I mean, Marcus Mariota was a second-round pick in almost every Scott Fishbowl, maybe third round. Like last year, he was probably a lot later because he got hurt his rookie year. But
let me get signed in, and then I'll
make your pick.
I already know who, if he's somebody I wanted to take when I took it's a kind of a long story, but I took a third quarterback because of what happened to me last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I got stuck with Case Keenum, who I actually love in real life and all of that. Okay, so here we go. So I'm like you. I don't like to carry a lot of quarterbacks, but in Scott Fishbowl, I do. Okay, so we've got Corey Coleman. Let's see, just going by the ADP that's showing up. I
Jeopardy music.
Really know who I want to take. Right, so you can just go ahead and shut up, Zach. Okay, so I really want to take another running back because I need a running back. I don't want a rookie because I've already invested heavily in rookies. I want to. We're in round 14. I want to take Charles Sims. How do you feel about that, Greg?
It seems a little early to me for him, if only because he's almost certainly in a timeshare. But
yeah, I mean, but look at the other options. These are the running backs left out there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty gross.
It's pretty gross. Jonathan Williams, Gio Bernard, James Conner, Jeremy Hill, DeAndre Washington, Devontae Booker, Jeremy McNichols, Jaquez Rogers, Charles Sims, Chris Thompson, TJ Yeldon. I thought about
backups and third stringers at this point.
So how do you guys feel about Marshawn Lynch? Are you Marshawn Lynch believers this year?
No.
See,
I want to believe. I really like him, but man, it's like, what happens if he gets hurt?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Richard.
I really looked, but you don't know the uncertainty. I really looked at DeAndre Washington.
Man, Jalen Richard, I think in our redraft.
So, I mean, I could take a wide receiver, but wide receiver is so rich out there right now. I guess I could take a third tight end. Gerald Everett, Jared Cook, Antonio Gates, Austin Seferius Jenkins, Jake Butt. I love Jake Butt, but I don't want a rookie tight end. Ben Watson, Vernon Davis, Gary Barnes, Vance McDonald. Everybody been waiting on Vance McDonald to step up.
Tight ends are, there's not much there.
So, really, my option is running back or tight end, and those are my options. Let me see if I can share this page.
Do it. I was just looking at our roster page.
How do we feel about Jared? I really hate to draft Jared.
Oh, Jared Cook. I was like, Jared Cook, he made that great play in the playoffs, and I looked at his stats last year. He had like 30 catches. I'm like, he was hurt most of the year because he's hurt and he drops passes.
Gary Barnage is
he's probably the starter for a pretty good offense. I don't know. You always have to think weekly. Like, he'll have a few good weeks, but you don't want to start him every week. But at this point, you're in the 14th round.
Antonio Gates. I would think Antonio Gates is probably the best, or maybe
it's amazing.
Watson.
37 years old. Wow.
I know.
I mean, so those college football, just damn.
Let me share. This is shoot. Hang on. Okay. Let me
share the pain because I have a pick about 4 picks after you. So
let me share this. Oh, can you see? Oh, wait. I don't think that's what I wanted to share.
We lost Greg. He just popped off. Maybe I'll come back. Or he's making his pick while he's... I was like, wow, 2 of the 3 of us are on a pick.
There. Okay, I got it.
It's been very slow today.
So...
Yeah, I mean, running back, it's like... Giovanni Bernard had an ACL like in November. James Conner's a rookie who had cancer in college. Jeremy Hill, don't even know if he's going to make the roster. Jonathan Williams is like, what, second string, third string in Buffalo?
I mean, I kind of think
at this point you take you can take second or third string running backs who might get a shot.
Don't you think Charles Sims is my best option there, Zach?
Well, considering Doug Martin's hurt, he'll have a pretty good role early
He's
in the
hurt
year.
and he's suspended the first 3 games.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take him, so you should take him.
I don't want to take Gio Bernard or Jeremy Hill.
Yeah.
The other option is DeAndre Washington, or go with a tight end. And
I have a really shallow, running back situation for me. It's like, I hope those young guys I drafted are going to be good.
I'm going to take him. That's what I'm going to take.
Make sure he's okay because he's disappeared.
Okay. All right. So there we go. I took Charles Sims.
Popped off. Did we lose him? Can I sing?
Maybe he went to make his draft pick because he said he needed to make one.
He said just got dropped from the call. Be right back. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and now you see that's kind of how
Rich Rebar. See, we have this, for some reason, Rich Rebar and I have this whole Lori Petty thing because, she was in Point Break. So he said it's all Tank Girl stats. So that's a good callback. Tank Girl.
All right.
Yeah. So hopefully he comes back. See, I didn't really have a strategy. Like last year, I drafted 4 tight ends in the first 9 rounds, and that was my whole thing. This year, I did what people used to do in fantasy drafts in the early 2000s, where they would draft their entire starting lineup before picking any backups. And that's kind of what I did. I was like, I remember picking Dak Prescott off waivers and spending all my waiver money on him because I didn't have a second quarterback. So that's why I took Jameis in the second round, and Sharona can clearly have thoughts about that one. And then I knew, I did a draft.
The Freak.
Oh yeah, I did a mock draft where Carson Palmer was there in the 6th round. I'm like, oh man, quarterbacks really fall off. So I took Andy Dalton in the 5th because that's what happens. There really is. By the end of the 5th round, 25 quarterbacks are off the board. Ryan Tannehill was a 5th rounder. I think Joe Flacco was a 5th rounder in our draft.
Yeah.
And they throw the ball a lot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued. If I had the Magic 8 ball, I'd like to know who is going to be the starting tight end for the Ravens, because I feel like that's going to be a position, but there's still a few guys left. So you made your pick. You good?
I picked Charles Sims. That's who I almost took him that last round, but I thought, that's a little early. But now, now I'm okay with.
He's
I'm okay.
Back.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah, there's
No
too early in Scott Fishbowl. I mean,
yeah, there's really not.
I mean, because I did some mock drafts, since I had the second pick, I took Julio Jones 302 in a mock. I'm like, okay, receivers are not valued very high. So I took Odell Beckham in the 3rd. I took Des Bryant in the 4th, and apparently he's available in the 5th in a lot of leagues. So I had to back off because I took Jamison Crowder in the 11th, but
I like that pick.
His scoring is still pretty low because you have those 3rd down backs who catch the 13-yard pass on 3rd and 15. Well, that's not going to get you a lot of points in the league. So I got those 3 tight ends. I mean, Delaney Walker, of course, I had to take in the league with Sharona.
You had to snipe him from me, and I know you did it just to spite me.
I took him in the 7th round. I'm like, I bet a lot of receivers will go off the board. Man, the next 6 picks, 5 were tight ends. I'm like, oh, there's a first level, a second. That was kind of the second level of tight ends. And I mean, I had the number 2 pick, and Aaron Rodgers went number 1, so I'm like, oh, duh, David Johnson, I'll take number 2. I took Zeke number 2 last year. It worked out. And C.J. Anderson, in the 6th, because I'll have to start him. And sometimes in fantasy, you're like, well, he's going to start at the beginning of the year, so I know I have a week 1 starter. I don't know if I have a week 5 starter because he gets hurt, and he might not. It's hard to stay in Denver with that running back situation. So I went with high upside guys. I took Kareem Hunt in the 8th. Rob Kelly went in the 8th round. I was like, damn, I better grab some more running backs. CJ,
for some context, he just got drafted in the 13th right before my pick. So that just shows you the range of outcomes in the Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah, it really is interesting, Greg.
Sanjay P. Ryan was 7th round pick or a 6th round pick, early.
Really am proud of my Curtis Samuel pick, though. I don't care what anybody thinks.
He's one of those guys, he's younger, maybe better hands Ted Ginn. And it's man, at best ball,
You also get
I'd take him because he's going to have some great weeks, I think. You just never know what's going to happen, kind of like with a New England running back. So, yeah, Delaney Walker took David Njoku. I know rookie tight ends suck, but why not? And I was kind of surprised Deshaun Watson made it to the 12th because I saw him going like way earlier in other drafts. And like rookie quarterback who runs, that's something. And I didn't have a third quarterback last year with the crap. And it's good to have that, like, if you can.
Yeah, you need to.
There's one guy in our league, because our league is mostly, I mean, there's one guy who has 4 quarterbacks already.
Oh, yeah?
There's one
Has
low pitch Mike on Twitter. He took Trevor Siemian in the 12th round. That's the only quarterback he's taken. If you can wait in quarterback and it works, it's probably going to work really well for you. But if it doesn't, you're going to be like, dude, where's Brock Osweiler off the waiver wire? That kind of thing.
Well, like I said, I got stuck with
Kessler's
Case
still
Keenum
around.
last year because my quarterbacks were Tyrod Taylor and Alex Smith, I think, and Alex Smith missed some games, and then and then you got bye weeks, and I was like, a lot of my draft strategy comes from I don't want that to happen. that thing that happened to me last year, I don't want that happening this year.
That's what you kind of hope, I guess, as a drafter. You're like, can people overreact based on last year? Because last year was like 0 running back, but then running backs did better. So people are taking running backs earlier this year. So, but you can't hold back on leagues where you point per first down when a guy, a good running back gets 300 touches, a good receiver gets 100. Okay, I think the advantage is for the running backs.
Yeah. Who did you take, Greg?
Oh, I haven't made my pick. Let's talk through it.
Make your pick. Yeah. Make your pick.
All right. So I still only have 3. Like, I basically have bench spots to fill at this point. So I'm in a strange position where I'm just hunting value at this point, right? So I feel pretty well set at running back, but I do feel like because the scoring rewards running back, I want to keep chasing that to some extent. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I need to catch up at wide receiver and tight end a little bit. And I really wish there was a tight end I was interested in right here. But, like, the guys who are available are Dwayne Allen, Antonio Gates, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I'm just skipping over the rookies because, like you talked about earlier, these guys just kind of creep up the ADP based upon the bulk of dynasty drafts that are on MFL 10.
I think it's easier to pick up a tight end because there's going to be a guy who comes out of nowhere than it is another position, but I could be wrong.
No, I agree with you, and I think that right now where the value is at wide receiver because running back's been pretty pick clean, quarterback's been pick clean, tight end's been pick clean, and this is why I waited at wide receiver. I feel like I can pick up the scraps here because we were talking about what tight ends are available. I could talk about the running backs. You're looking at actually some of the running backs here are okay, and I might be talking myself into them. Like CJ Procise is the top of the MFL rankings. And his teammate Thomas Rawls is still available too. My boy DeAndre Washington, who I tried to talk about before I got dropped from the call.
I really want, but I'm just not sure. I really wanted to draft him, Greg.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, like it's funny because we've already talked at length about how you don't really know, especially with these committees. And on top of that, you throw in like the game theory of the Scott Fishbowl, where there are so many teams that you need to differentiate your roster in some way, and you don't necessarily want to draft a boilerplate strategy. You don't want to draft the guys who are in theory going to be the best, because if everybody's trying to do that, it's like DFS. You're not going to separate yourself in any way. So you have to be a little contrarian somehow, and if that means taking Sims over DeAndre Washington, that's fine. Like there's such a small chance of winning this thing in the first place that it's okay to gamble a little bit. Like if I don't think Sims is better than DeAndre Washington, that's one thing. But I've drafted him in other leagues too. It's just if I'm comparing those two, that I guess I like Washington more. That's all I was saying. But there's nothing wrong with the pick you made. I like that. But yeah, I feel like the bulk of value right now for me is at wide receiver, like Jeremy Maclin, Marvin Jones, Adam Thielen, Rashad Perriman.
I almost took Marvin Jones. I was so close to taking Marvin Jones.
There are like 8th to 10th round guys in regular drafts here because of
the scoring.
Yeah.
You can get 80 catch guys at this point still.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that Seattle running back situation? Because, like, Prosise seems to be the PPR guy, right? But there's no PPR in this format. And Lacey seems to be the guy who most people are assuming is going to have that starting job, but Rawls is still there. Like, how do you two see that playing out? Because that's been a very interesting situation for me to monitor, like, in my draft so far this offseason.
It reminds me of Cincinnati in that you just, you really, and it's in Oakland too, to a certain extent, you don't know. And so you're kind of playing the odds. And, I tend to steer clear generally of those situations. I like Sims a little bit better because, the first 3 or 4 weeks, he's probably going to be the guy, right?
Well, a lot of people will tell you that Jacquizz Rodgers is going to be the guy, right? And that's
I don't think I don't think he's a guy who can handle a full load. I like Jacquizz Rodgers a lot, but he never has, and I don't see any team relying on him to be a bulk carry kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him do it game to game a little bit last year when Martin was hurt, and Sims, I think, was hurt too. But
Sims
that's
ended up on IR, yeah.
But that's the thing, is neither of those guys was healthy. It's like when Sims and Jacquizz Rodgers are healthy to start the year, and you also factor in like all of the wide receivers that they've added, or not all, but they added Sean Jackson. Or I guess, they added that rookie. What's his name?
Goodwin?
Yep.
Godwin?
Help me out.
Penn State?
Yeah, Chris Godwin. Yeah, thank you. So, like, you got to think maybe they'll be throwing more, and if that's the case, maybe Sims does have a bigger role. Like, again, the scoring settings are what really throw a monkey wrench in all of our analysis. Is we're so used to seeing these PPR guys and going like, yes, I know that guy's role, I know what he's doing, but now we don't have that clarity anymore because the scoring is different. It's like we don't necessarily know how often the PPR backs are going to be getting those first downs. And, we can look at first down statistics from last year, but last year's results are not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen this year.
And a lot of that situational too, because teams are going to be running what looks they're seeing from the other side. And I don't know how much you can glean from that.
Great point. Yeah, I totally agree. So, yeah, I'm looking at the running backs, and this is where the scoring settings you have to kind of analyze is like if you're trying to take advantage of the point per first down, you want the guys who are going to be in on short yardage situations. Those are the guys who are going to benefit the most, like those 2 and 1 yard carries that turn into 1.2 and 1.1 points each. Like, that's where you can get the value. So I look at CJ Prosise versus Thomas Rawls, and Thomas Rawls feels like he actually has more value in this format to me.
No, I agree.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to draft Rawls right now, but you can see the appeal of that pick, right? You can look at him and Eddie Lacy and say, okay, those are the 2 guys who have the shot to be, the early down guys and the guys who are going to get the short yardage work and the goal line work, right? And that's where you can kind of attack that position. But with that said, anyway, I still need to make a pick.
You're trying to talk yourself into running back. I can see it. You're wanting to take you want to take Prosise, I think.
I do. I want to take more running backs, and it's like I don't think I can do it. Like, I need to catch up at wide receivers. So the guys I'm looking at right now are Macklin and Marvin Jones, probably at the top of my rankings here. There are other guys I like too, I think
Jones is going to bounce back and because he started out so hot and was such a great great option. I really have a good feel, but I would much rather be, I took Charles Sims as opposed to, what if I took Charles Sims? You know what I'm saying? So you just got to go with your gut, I think, because it's your team.
Totally. And there's something to be said about your own analysis. You kind of got to trust that instinct to some extent. And so I tend to just lean on my own rankings. Like I do my own rankings every year. And right now, if I tell myself that I want to draft a wide receiver, I look at, who's at the top of my board, and it's, I think it is Macklin. Oh, no, I do have Marvin Jones ahead of him.
Do you?
Yeah, I have Marvin Jones 2 spots ahead of Jeremy Macklin. And a lot of that has to do with injury concern with Macklin. Like, we don't know how well he's going to bounce back from that groin injury he had last season. So, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take Marvin Jones here. Again, potential to be the number 1 wide receiver on a team. Like
Yeah,
Golden
I
Tate's
think
there, but we know the type of role that Golden Tate has, right?
I
He's
had
that
Golden
kind of.
Tate last year.
Well, yeah, in a PPR format, he's much better. Like in a format like this, where he's basically acting as like a CJ Pro-size type, that slot receiver who catches short dump offs. Like an extension of the running game through the pass. Like that's, not quite what we're looking for here when we're going for point per first down. So yeah, Marvin Jones is my guy. He's going to be my fourth wide receiver. If I should have taken CJ Pro-size, I'm blaming you two.
You should. I'm totally gonna. I'm
Put it on the
okay with
board,
that.
everybody.
I'm definitely okay with that.
Yep.
So yeah.
So Marvin Jones, welcome to the team. He's joining a wide receiver core of John Brown, Kelvin Benjamin, and Emmanuel Sanders.
I love John Brown.
I tweeted this earlier today. Like the one of the great things about the Scott Fishbowl is I look at the roster I've drafted, and I can tell myself that I'm never going to have another roster like this. Like this year or next year, because Scott's going to change the settings anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But like none of my regular teams are going to look like this. It's great. Like I love
It is
trying to adjust to these scoring settings on the fly and figure it out. It's super fun.
Yep.
You got to go against your brain sometimes because you see, like Odell Beckham in the third round. Come on, but all receivers are dropping compared to where they're going to be in a normal draft. Well, guess what? We're not in a normal draft. And this isn't a normal week. This is Game of Thrones premiere week. I feel like we have to talk about this now. We mentioned this earlier, and I don't know, Sharona, Greg, what you think about this, but can we possibly rank top beards in Game of Thrones? I feel like there's a lot of really good ones out there.
Do we want to go reverse order here? Like do like a top 5? Or we could
reverse order.
How about this? How about we draft beards? We do a little snake draft.
Oh gosh, I have to look up characters.
That's what I'm doing right now.
you can just tell me what they are, and I'll tell you their names. I'm kind of a Game of Thrones nut.
Well, we'll have to give Greg the first pick, of course. That's important.
All right. Well, I'm going to kick it off with Tormund Giants Bane.
Oh, that's
okay.
You
the
took
big
my
redhead
guy, man.
The guy who was making eyes at Brienne at the end of last season. That guy. Do you think they're gonna,
That's the ultimate fan service right there.
Bump boots.
So we're gonna definitely go opposite of me.
Oh, I know who I'm picking.
Who are you taking? You get the 2. I'll go with the 3. I get the turn.
Okay, so I get 5 selections. We're going from 5 up to 1.
Well,
no, we're just
kind
drafting.
of snake drafts. So you get the second pick, then I get the third.
Oh, okay. Dario.
Oh, that's
nice
a new
choice.
Dario, not the old one.
He's got a very clean beard, which is a good choice.
I kind of like clean. I like. I almost went with Eddard Stark. But,
I don't know, dead or alive characters. See, that's a tough one too.
Yeah, you're right.
There's so many dead characters.
Giants Bane definitely does have.
We'll go with alive if we can. I'm definitely going to take Jon Snow. I feel like although he's got kind of the weird greased back hair going on this year, I don't know what's happening there. They're trying different stuff. I'm like, who's still alive?
Oh, I messed up. I should. Shoot. I know who I'm taking next though.
All right.
Well, any Night King definitely doesn't have any facial hair, so you're killing me here.
Frost beard.
Internet. I don't think Jorah even has a beard. How do the other characters have beards? Dead. Not dead.
I guess that's the secret to surviving the Game of Thrones. You don't grow a beard and you'll live.
There you go.
I don't know if I love his beard, but I like the character. So I'm going to Davis Seaworth as my second pick.
Oh,
so
great
Damn
choice.
it! You just sniped me.
I'll give it up to Sharona.
Sniped
You
her.
sniped me. That's who I was gonna take.
Davos. Cut my fingers off. I don't care.
Hang on.
Back to you, Sharona.
Keep trying.
No, hold on. I get a little bit of time. Hang on.
You guys don't get a good enough beard, but you still like him as a character. So
Let me. I'm having trouble with. Oh,
one of
here we
my
go.
favorite things about the Ringer podcast is how they talk about how Littlefinger's accent is different every year. It's great.
Going to the video.
Because he's like a well enough known actor. He's like, screw it.
I kind
Well,
of
they take so
dig
much time off.
I mean, I kind of dig the clean beards, you know.
Yeah, beard's a beard. This is not a
Personal
beard.
hygiene is very important.
It's important. Yes, it is. I sort of. Hang on. You know, Jamie had a nice beard at one point.
At one point. Well, he's still, you know.
Oh wait. Oh. Who is this?
Right
I've got it. Hang on. Hold on.
Dead.
Don't snipe me.
Dead.
Don't do it.
Alive, Drogo. Dead. Call Drogo.
Oh, that's a great pick. I wasn't gonna pick him, but that's a nice one.
Alive? Are we doing alive, dead? Whatever.
We can't be picky.
At this point, you got it.
He had the nice one. Like
from what band? No, sorry, wrong person.
Let me see if I've got to show this. This is the boss beard.
But he's gonna be Aquaman too. Oh yeah, exactly.
Looking good.
Left us too soon.
R.I.P.
Okay, so we have back-to-back picks for Greg here.
All right, so I'm gonna raise my
second
goblet of wine.
Third picks.
This one goes to Tyrion because he's got a nice beard. He's very small, so I mean his beard takes up kind of more mass of his like he's more percent beard than anyone else in Game of Thrones. I think that should count for something. I feel like that's a nice value.
I like it.
Any character you hear them talk normally and they don't have the accent, you're like, oh yeah, look at that work. All right, so we're gonna do back to back. We'll probably just go to the fourth, so it means you'll get the last pick. So second, third picks for you.
Is it my pick again?
Sidebar?
Yep.
Sidebar, I appreciate the fact that you knew because it was a snake draft we should do an even number of rounds. That's important in evening out the value.
Yeah.
It's an experienced fantasy move.
We might throw this out there to Twitter and see, maybe we get some votes on who had the best draft. I feel like we all winners, especially Sunday night. Longest break between show episodes ever. Come on.
Yeah. So let's see.
I'm gonna have to go. Oh, is it whose turn is it?
Greg gets a turn.
I'm sorry.
No, okay.
My bad.
How
dare I get a turn to finish? So that's gonna.
How dare you, Sharona? So man, Davos was a great pick. I'm gonna try to stick to alive characters, and I will take Jorah Mormont.
That's who I was gonna take. Sniped again.
Ooh.
Sniped again.
When you have the beard and you have the grayscale, I mean it's a nice combo. You can't deny it.
Oh, I just saw the Red Viper. Oh, too soon.
R.I.P.
Man, these are all dead. All those characters. All right, Sharon, you got to pick.
I got sniped.
I'm excited. What I might do here.
Let me get to I gotta get to IMDb because this is not. I'm having trouble.
Too many characters. I mean, talk about it.
I'm having. Oh wait, here we go. Because I do like clean, I think I'm gonna have to go with. I call him Oberon, but that's
the one. Viper, is that his name?
The one that got killed by the mountain.
You like dead people. I explained your love for injured fantasy players.
That's who I picked.
although Oberon is his name, right?
That's right. You got the name right. Oberon.
Yell at me.
Oberon Martell.
There. Thank you. Oberon Martell. That's who I'm picking.
This allows me to do the very exciting back-to-back. I'm going to do a brother on brother. So Gregor the Mountain Clegane followed by the Hound Clegane.
Clegane Bowl.
Finish my draft out.
I just couldn't
with
take
alive characters. Well, it's sort of in one case, but hey, if you're alive, right?
Okay. Whose turn is it now?
The Mountain, and then
to go back to me.
The Hound, and then it's Sharona's pick, and then Greg will finish us out.
I'm gonna go with the very suave, smooth little finger.
Oh, a little goatee.
You're in sigil. What's our sigil should be? It might be think Sharona and I would both have a cat sigil. Cat taking a nap. Ferris has no beard, so that will not give it away.
My little beagle direwolf is taking a nap right now too on the couch. Let's see. So that
dead. I love this.
Doesn't leave me with much here. I'm gonna take a page out of Sharona's book and go with another dead character, and I'm gonna take Robert Baratheon, the original king from the series, because he had a nice big bushy beard, and
I liked it.
That's something that we can all aspire to.
One of my favorite lines from the Ringer: titles. When he's writing a letter, he just tells them titles, because each person he mentioned would have like a bunch of titles. Oh, Sharona, are you heartbreaking if we don't get to over it or not? Because
Is it my pick again?
No, we're done. That's it. That's 4 rounds.
Right.
We've all taken, I believe, 4.
The honorary pick should be George R.R. Martin.
Cheers to George.
He's got a nice beard. That's all right. We can skip. We'll do an extended over it or not next week.
He did solid work. I don't know, man. Talk about, because he mentioned that he didn't think this could ever be a movie, and you think of like some movies that are like fantasy and stuff, and like this had to be an extended, just based on all the characters and all the stuff happening and the fact that all this time passed. It's really turned out well, and even though some of the characters, their accents might be great, not so great, the show's good stuff, and it makes you. I mean, we watched The Red Wedding probably for the 3rd time like last week, and it's still like, oh,
so brutal.
Every time you're like, but it's the best was what was the comedy show where they did like the preview and it was like the Dinkles, like. My wife's like, if they kill Peter Dinklage on this show, I'm never watching it again. There's some characters you're like, I don't think they can kill them, but for the most part, you just don't know. That's the point.
Do you guys have any predictions for the upcoming season? Anybody who you think might be on their way out?
Well, there's some book-based predictions about who's in the current Iron Throne, about what's going to happen, but I don't know, Daenerys, they're almost like Daenerys now has the major advantage because she got she's a fleet and she has the dragons. So obviously something bad's going to happen at some point.
My money's on Cersei. You don't fuck with Cersei. I'm sorry. Pardon my French. But, Jaime and Cersei are going to make a comeback, and it's going to be,
I think Jaime might make a comeback. I don't know if Cersei will. That's my prediction. I think Cersei might be on her way out this season.
Well, there's your prediction.
Oh, no. Yeah. So you're looking for... Do you like these, like Mad Men kind of... what's the other one? Breaking Bad did this too. Where like, okay, we have 10-episode seasons. Now we're going to do shorter seasons because we want to do more of them. They're talking about the final season being like 2 hours each. But... still, it's like, man, they're really drawing this thing out. I don't blame them because it's cash cow.
Yeah, and they're also trying to buy time for the books, I think. Mm-hmm. But at this point, they're so far beyond it that it probably doesn't matter. And there's it's all just titles. There are going to
be 4 spinoffs.
Dollar bills.
I mean, you've read the books, and the Ringer show, talks about all that history, and there's so many centuries of backstory to this that they can go back hundreds and thousands of years.
You could do prequels and stuff like Star Wars.
They're going to do it, and they're going to get a massive, and they can put a lot of money into it. It's going to be very popular. So HBO's like, what's going to happen after Game of Thrones? More Game of Thrones? Okay.
Hey, I'm okay with it. I enjoy it.
They canceled my favorite Netflix show, although I am getting a 2-hour finale. Woo!
Yeah, at least you can tie it up. Ties the room together, as they say. So since we've banned 10, 15 in a weeknight, what's happening? I know it's early on the West Coast.
Madness.
So Greg, where can people find you online? Because I feel like they have many places.
Yeah, so football-wise, 2QBs.com. We've got a draft guide coming out next week for 2 quarterback leagues. If you're in a 2QB league, we have all sorts of awesome stuff, and this is going to be over 100 pages with like profiles of over 50 quarterbacks. rankings, auction values, cheat sheets, and a bunch of great articles, a mock draft with a bunch of heavy hitters from around the industry. So check that out. We'll be, plugging that like crazy starting next week. And you can find me on Twitter at Greg Sauce. You can follow the site on Twitter at 2QBs. You should definitely follow Sal at 2QBFFB. I can't imagine that anybody who's in a 2-quarterback league isn't following Sal already, but if you're not, get on it because he's the man. And yeah, those are the 2 key places to find me. I do write for the fantasy baseball world during draft season, so we're months away from that still, but that'll be at the Fake Baseball. But yeah, hit me up on Twitter. Let's talk SFB. Let's talk Game of Thrones. I'm game. Let's do it.
Greg Sauce. So Sharona, what you got?
You've heard everything there is to know about me.
Not yet, but close. Yeah.
Almost.
I actually had a blog post about a bizarre event that happened last weekend where I lost my cat for about 10 hours, assumed he was gone. And of course, he ended up in a drawer at the end of the day after we had printed out lost kitty flyers and everything. And now I'm attached to my local community a little more because I posted a bunch of stuff about that. Strange times. But yeah, Zach_Law on Twitter, and that's where you can find me. And yeah, I think I need to do some kind of Scotty Fishbowl like once the division draft is finished.
We need to crank up our stuff.
Because I have a pick coming up. Well, I'm at the 2, so yeah, I'll have the 11 and the 2. 14 rounds, 14 and 15. Yeah, you get excited. You go, oh man, we're making nice progress. But yeah, we're gonna be done with this draft by the weekend, and they're gonna be like, oh no, what's next? I need another draft. You get the draft fix. I'm in another Scott Fish league, and I think he said that the drafts aren't happening for another few weeks. Well, that's probably good. But it's good to see that fantasy football season never ends, but it's clearly started. SFB7 is a nice hashtag compared to the 481 last year.
Yes.
Easy one to follow. So you can follow all, there's 720 teams drafting right now. So that's a lot, but it gives you a lot of insight into what's happening. And a league that you really can't follow in other leagues because there's nothing like it, which is, it's a testament to Mr. Scott Fish, one of our favorite people. So thank you, Greg, and thank you, Sharona, for being on and the late night time and all that stuff. And winter is coming, but not in this sweaty studio I got going on right now. So good night, everybody, and kiss my grits.